Hi, my name's Benjamin, and I never thought the woman I loved would look me dead in the eyes and say, I can replace you in 12 hours. But that was just the spark. What followed was betrayal so cold. My own mother believed her lies. My sister joined in. They erased me from my life, one group chat at a time. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, she smiled while doing it. Would you stay silent, or would you burn the truth into the ground? Friday evening, I pulled into the driveway the same way I had every other evening for the past 2 years. The sun was still clinging to the edge of the sky, casting long shadows over the sidewalk. I sat in the car for a moment longer than usual, engine off, listening to the tick-tick-tick of cooling metal. I don't know why. Maybe I already felt it coming. Work had been uneventful, emails, small talk, the usual grind, nothing dramatic. But coming home, I expected that little peace we all hope for. I wasn't looking for fireworks or grand gestures, just a smile, maybe a, "How was your day?" That would have been enough. But that evening, the apartment felt different. Quiet like always, but not the comforting kind. It was the kind of silence that crept into your bones. She was on the couch, legs curled, eyes locked on her phone. Her fingers danced fast across the screen, pausing only when I entered. Then came the subtle shift. The screen tilted slightly away, her body angled just enough to signal she didn't want me seeing. I noticed. I didn't say anything. They say trouble doesn't knock, I murmured to myself as I set down my keys. It barges in. She didn't hear that, or maybe she did and chose to ignore it. Want to grab something for dinner? I asked casually, walking toward the kitchen. We haven't been out in a while. She didn't look up. I already ate. It wasn't the words. It was how they came out, flat, dismissive, like she'd been waiting to say them. I hesitated, then forced a half smile. All right, maybe I'll order something. You want anything? She sighed, finally glancing at me. God, Ben, you're so clingy sometimes. Can't I have one night without the dinner dance? I froze. That wasn't her usual tone. Not even close. Clingy? I repeated, blinking. She stood up, arms crossed. Yes, you always need something. Attention, conversation, dinner plans. It's boring. You're boring. That one hit. And I should have said something, should have defended myself. Instead, I stood there like a damn statue. She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. I could replace you in 12 hours. You know that, right? It wasn't a scream, it wasn't emotional, it was cold. Clinical. Like she was reciting a line she'd rehearsed. I didn't answer. Not right away. I couldn't. Because it wasn't the insult that broke me. It was how easily it came out of her mouth. I think I even nodded. Like I agreed. Like I accepted my place in her hierarchy of disposable people. I walked to the sink and ran water into a glass, my back turned to her. I couldn't face those eyes again. Inside, I was a storm. But I'd been trained, by life, by past mistakes, to keep the weather hidden. I didn't yell, didn't slam the door. I just stood there, sipping water, feeling the weight of every choice I'd made to get here. Funny how love turns into landmines. Later, she disappeared into the bedroom, leaving the living room to its quiet judgment. I sat on the edge of the couch, looking at the blank TV screen. I saw myself reflected there, a man who used to fight, used to argue, used to believe he was worth defending. Not tonight, not anymore. I started thinking back, how I'd left a stable job to move here for her. How I'd tried so hard to make this work. Little sacrifices, big ones. I remembered canceling that out-of-state opportunity because she didn't want to do long distance. And yet, here we were, strangers sharing rent. Funny how the people we love forget who we really are, I muttered, rubbing the bridge of my nose. The silence wasn't comforting now. It was punishment. Growing up, I was the youngest, always the one who had to make room, stay quiet, smooth over fights. My brothers yelled, my parents fought, but I was the one who kept my head down. That survival tactic, it never left me. After my divorce, I told myself I'd never settle again. Then she came along. Warm, patient, or so I thought. She had this calm about her that made me feel safe. Like maybe this time I'd found someone who got it, who got me. But somewhere along the way, my loyalty had turned into invisibility. You don't notice you're being erased until one day you speak, and no one hears. I didn't even know how long I'd been sitting there when I got up and walked outside. The backyard was quiet, just the hum of distant traffic and the rustle of trees. I sat in one of those cheap plastic chairs we never got around to replacing. The stars were starting to poke through the sky, slow and patient. When did love become survival? I whispered to no one. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just sat there, breathing in and out, letting the silence wrap around me, not to comfort, but to confirm something had cracked. I didn't say anything then, but something inside me had already begun to change. Sometimes silence is just the breath before the storm. Saturday morning rolled in without any grand announcement, just light through the blinds and the faint hum of the fridge. I lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the night before. Her words were still echoing in my head, sharp, cold, calculated. I can replace you in 12 hours. That's not something you forget after a few hours of sleep. I half expected to wake up to a slammed door or at least the sound of her packing, but instead I heard humming, her humming, from the kitchen. When I stepped out of the bedroom, there she was, moving around like nothing happened. She glanced over and gave me a smile, the kind you'd give a coworker you barely tolerate. "Morning," she said, pouring coffee. "You want eggs?" I stood there stunned. This woman, who last night tore me down with surgical precision, was now flipping pancakes like we were on some Sunday family sitcom. "You okay?" she asked, barely looking at me. "Yeah," I said, but I wasn't. Not even close. She was scrolling her phone, smirking at something, then tucking it face down the moment I got near. I watched her move around the kitchen like a performer on stage, as if everything was scripted to say, "See, nothing happened. You're imagining things." That's when it hit me. Sometimes the cruelest thing isn't yelling, it's pretending nothing was ever said. I wanted to believe maybe she regretted it. Maybe she was too proud to say sorry. But the longer I stood there, the more I realized she just didn't care, or worse, she wanted me to question my memory of last night. "You remember what you said last night?" I finally asked, my voice low. She didn't flinch. "What? Oh, that?" she laughed. "Ben, you're being too sensitive. It was a joke." "A joke," I repeated. She rolled her eyes. "You always blow things out of proportion. It's exhausting." She handed me a plate with my favorite breakfast. Eggs over medium, 2 slices of sourdough, and avocado. She knew what she was doing. This wasn't an apology, it was a cover-up, a distraction. I sat at the table but didn't touch the food. She leaned down, kissed my cheek. "Eat before it gets cold, okay?" Part of me wanted to believe her, that maybe I'd imagined the weight in her voice last night. But deep down, I knew better. I wasn't crazy. I was being managed. I'd seen this before, just never from someone I loved. I thought back to moments that seemed insignificant at the time. Her calling me needy when I wanted to talk. The sarcastic digs masked as jokes. How she'd go quiet for days when things didn't go her way, then act like nothing happened. People had warned me. A few friends, even my sister once said, "She doesn't look at you like someone she respects." I brushed it off, thought they didn't know her like I did. Turns out, they saw what I didn't want to admit. "You stay long enough," I whispered to myself, hoping who they were will come back. But the version I fell for was long gone, if she was ever real to begin with. The rest of the day moved on like a badly written play. We ran errands, grabbed groceries, exchanged small talk like two coworkers forced into a carpool. I noticed she was on her phone constantly, always smiling at something, someone. At one point I asked, "Everything okay?" She looked up, caught off guard. "What? You seem distracted." She shrugged. "Just group chat stuff, work stuff." But her screen was angled just enough that I never saw a name, not once. Later, I brought up our upcoming trip, something we'd planned months ago. "You still up for the coast next weekend?" She sipped her drink, paused. "We'll see if I still feel like going." The words hung in the air like smoke. She didn't even blink after saying it, just turned and started unloading the dishwasher. That was the moment something shifted in me. And until then, I'd been clinging to the idea that things could return to how they were. But that line, it wasn't about the trip, it was a test, a way to remind me she held the cards. You can live with someone, I thought, and still feel like a guest in your own life. The hours dragged until evening. We ordered takeout. She picked the movie, laughed at all the wrong times. I barely spoke. My body was there, but the rest of me, I don't know where I was. She got up to shower. I stayed on the couch, scrolling through my phone out of habit. That's when hers lit up, right next to me. I didn't touch it, just glanced. A message preview glowed on the screen. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was wild. I stared at it, hands trembling, heart pounding, not from surprise, but from clarity. I looked toward the bathroom, hearing the water still running. 12 hours, huh? I whispered. I sat back in the chair, her phone still lit up next to me. That one message was enough to punch the air out of my lungs, but I opened the thread anyway. My thumb hovered, trembling, like it knew once I started reading, I'd never see her the same again. The conversation wasn't vague. No way to misread it. Flirty comments, inside jokes I didn't understand, late-night meetups. And then, hotel receipts, screenshots, a room booked last weekend when she told me she was visiting her cousin. There it was, not just betrayal, proof. My palms went cold, like my body was rejecting what my eyes kept reading. I stared at the screen, rereading messages I shouldn't have seen, a stranger's language in the phone of the woman I lived with. I still wanted to believe maybe I misunderstood, that maybe this was an old thread, or a prank, or something that, if I asked the right question, she'd have an answer for. But I knew better. Denial doesn't protect you. It delays your pain. This was it. The crack in the wall I'd spent the last year building just to survive. I'd plastered over every red flag, painted smiles over her silence, and now the truth had its foot in the door. I locked her phone and placed it back exactly where it was. She came out of the shower minutes later, towel wrapped around her hair, humming something soft. She didn't even notice anything was different. Dinner was quiet. She passed me the soy sauce. Asked if I liked the noodles. I nodded, but I was somewhere else entirely. Watching her, listening to the way her voice curled around fake cheerfulness, like nothing happened. Like I hadn't just read her confessions to another man. "Did you have a good day?" she asked. I looked up. "Yeah, you?" She smiled. "Productive." I nodded. Took another bite. Chewed slow. She rambled about someone at work who overshares. I listened like an anthropologist studies wildlife. Detached. Fascinated. Watching a species I thought I understood. It's a strange kind of loneliness, knowing something that changes everything while sitting across from the person acting like they're still your partner. She reached for my hand once. Said, "You've been quiet." I just smiled back. Just tired. But inside, I was shouting. I remembered the first time she told me, "You're the only one who gets me." I'd held on to that for months, believing it made us special, believing I meant something deeper. Turns out, I was just the one easiest to fool. After dinner, she curled up on the couch, scrolled her phone, giggled at something I didn't ask about. I excused myself, said I had work to finish. She barely looked up. In my room, the air felt tighter. I paced. Couldn't sit still. My head spinning between confrontation and silence. What would blowing up tonight fix? Nothing. Not yet. My dad used to tell me, "Don't speak in anger. Speak with strategy." He was right. I sat down, opened my laptop, and got to work. I started pulling together whatever I could. Backup copies of joint financial docs, receipts, photos, shared accounts, quietly building a digital trail. Every move was deliberate. I copied her messages to myself, took screenshots, emailed backups to a private folder. Not out of revenge, out of preservation. I wasn't reacting. I was preparing. This wasn't about catching her. It was about catching myself before I fell any deeper. Going from a partner to a planner of my own rescue. That's how I'd describe it. There was a strange comfort in taking action. In not sitting still with the pain. I dug through the folders on her laptop next. She'd left it open earlier. A familiar password. I was careful. Quick. Just enough to confirm what I already knew. She hadn't slipped. She'd chosen this path. More than once. I moved to send one last file when a pop-up stopped me cold. Device requires password update. I froze. Why now? She never updated anything without telling me. I looked at the screen, back at the door. She knew. Maybe not everything, but enough to suspect something. This wasn't just betrayal. It's war now. I didn't sleep much that night, maybe an hour, 2 at most. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that message, her message. the one that turned suspicion into certainty. By the time the sun peeked through the blinds, I was already dressed, sitting on the edge of the bed like a soldier waiting for orders. But none came, just silence. And her in the kitchen, humming again, like betrayal was something you could scrub off with hot coffee and eggs over easy. "You want some toast?" she called out. "Sure," I said, though I didn't taste much that morning. She moved around the kitchen like nothing happened, smiling, light on her feet. But now I noticed every little thing. The exaggerated cheer in her voice, the way she looked at me a second too long, waiting for my reaction. My late uncle used to say, "The person lying to you always overcompensates with kindness." I never understood it until I watched her offer me an extra slice of bacon with a smile too big for a Sunday morning. I didn't accuse. I studied every word, every gesture. Her kindness didn't feel like love anymore. It felt like camouflage. The knock on the door came around 10. I opened it to find Julian standing there holding my old toolbox. "Figured I'd drop this off while I was in the neighborhood," he said. We sat on the porch steps. Light talk at first, the kind men use to avoid real conversation. But then his tone shifted. "Hey, I wanted to ask you something," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "Shoot," he hesitated. "A while back, she told me you were going through stuff. Said you were getting paranoid. Controlling." I stared at him. "She said that?" "Yeah. I didn't know what to make of it at the time. I mean, you've always been level. But it stuck with me. I guess that's why I've been a little distant." I nodded slowly. She didn't just betray me. She assassinated my character. To my own friend. "She really said that?" Julian looked down. "I shouldn't have listened. I'm sorry, man." "She wasn't just breaking my heart," I muttered. "She was breaking my credibility." He left shortly after, toolbox in hand, said he'd check in soon. I nodded, barely hearing him. I walked back inside. She was wiping down the counter, turned, smiled. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah." She cocked her head. "You've been quiet." "Just tired," I said, echoing yesterday's lie. But my tone was different. My body, different. I wasn't masking anything now. I was watching. She picked up on it, asked again, "Is something wrong?" I looked at her. Really looked. "Isn't it tiring, lying to the people who still trust you?" She froze. That smile of hers cracked, just for a second, and I walked away. No explosion. No shouting. Just that sentence hanging in the room like smoke from a fire not yet started. In my room, I stared at the wall, replaying Julian's words, her stories, my memories. The weight of it all pressed down on my chest like bricks. I picked up my phone and called another friend, someone we both knew. "Hey, random question," I said. "Did she ever say anything weird about me, out of pocket?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "Yeah," he said. "Actually, she told me you were losing it, that she was worried, said she might have to leave you soon. She even asked me what kind of custody rights unmarried couples have in Texas. I thought she was just venting." I didn't say much after that. Hung up. Sat there. She wasn't planning to break up. She was planning a story, a narrative, something she could use if this all went sideways. That hit harder than the cheating. This wasn't a relationship anymore. It was chess, and she was already 3 moves ahead. "You don't raise your voice in war," I whispered to myself. "You raise your standards." I grabbed my phone. Waited till she went out to run errands. Something about needing coffee beans. Then I left her a voice note. "You can lie to the world," I said, voice low and even. "But you can't lie to someone who's lived in the shadows of your truth." That was all. Later that afternoon, I watched her play the message on her phone while sipping her overpriced latte. She didn't flinch, just clenched her jaw, hit delete. But I knew she didn't forget it. Her silence wasn't peace. It was preparation. The afternoon air inside the house felt heavy, like it hadn't moved in days. She was in the other room, half humming some song I couldn't recognize, but it wasn't the tune that bothered me. It was the way it floated through the house like nothing had happened. I sat on the couch staring at a blank TV screen, still hearing that message in my head. Her words dressed up in apology, but hollow underneath. I didn't say a thing. Not yet. I told myself, observe first, accuse later, but damn, it's hard. The silence between us wasn't peace, it was cold. It didn't scream, it whispered, and the whisper said, this is what betrayal feels like when it pretends to behave. So I cooked, not out of hunger, not out of kindness. I needed to remember if anything we built together still meant something. I pulled out that old recipe we'd used years ago, the one she loved the most. Creamy chicken marsala, sautéed green beans with garlic, and roasted potatoes seasoned just right. Took me 4 hours from start to finish. Every slice of mushroom, every stir of the sauce. It was like holding on to memories that were slipping through my fingers. She never joined me in the kitchen. I thought maybe it was one of those wait till it's ready moments. Maybe she'd come out when she smelled it. Maybe she'd notice the effort. By 7, I had 2 plates laid out, table set, candles lit, not for romance, but for some form of civility. I stood by the hallway and called out, dinner's ready. She emerged a minute later, glanced at the food and said, I'm not hungry, like I just asked if she wanted a snack during a movie. She didn't sit, didn't say thank you, just turned around and went back to wherever she came from. I stared at the plate across from mine. 4 hours. 4 hours, and all I got was the sound of her footsteps walking away. I sat down, ate slowly. The food tasted fine, but it landed heavy in my chest. Every bite felt like a sentence I couldn't speak, like the meal was swallowing me back. I pulled out my phone and texted a friend. Do people ever notice when you disappear? The message stayed unread. It didn't even show delivered for the longest time. I looked at the second plate, still warm, still untouched. That's what I felt like. A warm plate she asked for, then ignored. Later that night, I opened Instagram. She had posted a photo, her and her family at brunch earlier in the day. Caption said, grateful for love, family, every moment together. There was no mention of me, no tag, no thanks, just smiles for the world, like she'd been living in some perfect movie while I was over here writing tragedy with a knife and cutting board. I screenshot it, and then I read the comments. You're such a light. Your strength is inspiring. I want to be you when I grow up. It felt surreal, like I was a ghost in my own relationship, watching someone else be praised for playing me clean off the stage. I thought back to something my mother said once years ago when my dad forgot her birthday and acted like it was no big deal. Not being named in someone's story. Is that a goodbye? Now I knew what she meant. Later, I checked my phone again, expecting silence. Instead, I had a direct message. It was from her account. Just 6 words. I'm sorry you feel that way. Can we talk? That phrasing, that you feel that way line, it wasn't apology. It was deflection. I stared at it. Did she know I saw everything? Was this a trap? Or maybe it was the start of a long overdue conversation. I stood outside her door, hand hovering over the knob, trembling just a little, but not from fear. I wasn't afraid of her. I was afraid of what I'd find when I finally looked her in the eyes and asked, who are you, really? I woke up before the sun. Room still dark, my chest tighter than it had been all week. I hadn't slept much, just turned, stared at the ceiling, replayed her message. Can we talk? Like a song stuck in the wrong key. I sat up on the edge of the bed. No sighs, no tears, just stillness. It was time. Today wasn't about feeling anymore. Today was about doing. I opened my laptop, slid the drawer open, and laid everything out. Copies of text messages, screenshots, bank statements, timeline notes, Julian's account, her deleted posts, her words saved in my voice memo drafts. If she wanted a story, I'd give her a damn chapter and verse. I whispered to myself, you don't fight shadows, you bring a spotlight. By the time the sun reached the blinds, I had it all organized in folders. I wasn't fueled by anger anymore. It was something sharper, more surgical. I didn't want revenge, I wanted clarity. By mid-morning, she walked into the kitchen like any other Monday. Pajamas, coffee, that fake little smile that once meant comfort. Morning, she said. I watched her. Julian told me, I said quietly. She paused mid-sip. Told you what? I slid the phone across the counter. Messages. Her words to him, not mine. And then the other thread, those flirty texts to someone else. Hotel confirmation, location tags, all laid out, no commentary. Her smile dropped. She tried to laugh. That's out of context. You told him I was unstable, controlling, that I needed help. She shrugged. I never said you were dangerous, just emotional. Then came the one line that burned hotter than any lie. I never promised exclusivity. I felt it in my spine. That twist. I stayed still. No yelling? She asked, cocking her head. I'm not accusing, I said, voice even. I'm proving. Her eyes flickered. That's when she knew this wasn't another emotional swing. This was the first strike. Strategic, calm, clear. She grabbed her phone off the counter and stormed toward the bedroom. As soon as the door clicked behind her, I noticed her second phone, the one she used for work, still sitting on the counter. It buzzed. Voice message notification. I didn't plan to open it, I swear. But curiosity has its own gravity when truth is close. It was a draft, unsent. She hadn't deleted it yet. I tapped it. Her voice played through the speaker, low and breathy. Hey, I just wanted you to know how last night made me feel. I haven't felt that alive in months. You always know how to touch the parts of me he doesn't even see. Thank you for making me feel seen. Wanted. I stood there, silent, still holding the phone like it had weight. The timestamp was from 3 nights ago. I could hear the echo of our hallway in the background. Same night she told me she was at yoga. Same night she came home quiet and went straight to bed. I sat down, phone still playing. Your voice used to be my solace, I whispered. Now it's my evidence. She didn't know I'd heard it, not yet. I sent a calm text. Nothing dramatic, no punctuation bombs, just, I need space. Let's talk when you're ready to be honest. Then I walked into my office, opened the file archive, and uploaded everything to Desi, my backup attorney. Not because I wanted a divorce, not yet, but because this was no longer just a relationship, it was a battlefield, and I wasn't stepping into it unarmed. I sat back in the chair and watched the sunlight fade on the wall. Control, I'd learned, is quiet. The ones who panic, they're usually the ones with something to hide. Then came the knock. Soft, barely there. A second later, my phone buzzed again, her name on the screen. Another message. Let me explain. I didn't move right away, just stared at the door. Then I stood, walked over, pressed my hand against the wood, steadying my breath. This time, I wasn't hoping. I was listening for the lie before it came out of her mouth. I stared at the party invite for longer than I care to admit. She was hosting. My gut nodded. But I told myself this wasn't about begging. This was about showing the world I wasn't invisible. I dressed with care, buttoned shirt, pressed slacks, shoes shined. I rehearsed quiet strength in my mind. No tears, no outburst, but presence. I drove to the house, parked down the street so no one would see me pull up. I walked in through the back, heart pounding, every footstep deliberate. When she saw me, she flashed that practiced smile. You came, she said in a tone that seemed neutral, almost relieved. I nodded. My insides twisted. Every conversation paused. The air changed. My phone buzzed. Ben showed up? From our group chat. She had orchestrated that. Spotlight. Control under the guise of surprise. I refused to retreat. I stood in the living room where people congregated. Friends, colleagues, faces I'd once trusted. She drifted toward me as if we were still a picture-perfect couple, eyes lit, voice poised. Ben's been insecure lately, she said loud enough for everyone to hear. Obsessive even. He overreacts. Laughter. A few nods. Someone else murmured, we all have our quirks. I said nothing. I let that moment hang in the air. Her claim, their laughter, my silence. Memory flickered back. The last time someone humiliated me in front of company. I tensed, swallowed, stayed quiet. Not tonight. Tonight I was holding a mirror. Inside, my head burned with questions, but my face stayed still. I refused to give them the spectacle they wanted. Later, I got messages from mutual friends. Hey, are you okay? Saw what she said. Screenshots, hopes, anger, betrayal. Then worse, I checked the chat group again. My name gone, posts I made, erased, comments I left, hidden, deleted. She posted in the group, trying to block negativity. Please understand. My chest tightened. I felt not erased, repositioned, projected as the villain. I had spent years defending her in that same space, sticking up for her. Now I was an intruder. I left the party early, walked out into the quiet street. The night felt heavy, unforgiving. Phone in hand, thumb hovering. I typed messages to a few key guests, not asking for sympathy, but clarity. Did you really believe what she said? I watched their replies trickle in. Confusion, shock, some apologetic. I let silence be my defense. Ahead of me, taillights flickered. A car eased by, slowed. A voice, familiar. You're the one she's hiding behind, whispered, then gone. My heart jumped. I turned, but only saw empty sidewalk. That whisper changed something. Her game was now public. Not just between us, but in living, breathing rooms she never asked permission to invade. I clutched my phone, ready to reply, or to expose. I sat in my office that evening, the blinds half drawn, the room lit only by my desk lamp. My laptop screen glowed with layers of evidence, screenshots, timestamps, receipts, voice memos. Her voice, once my comfort, now archived in WAV files named by date and context. I had sorted everything, each file a moment I once ignored, the broken watch, her whispered messages to someone else, Julian's warning. Each thread was a piece of the fabric she'd wrapped around me. Outside, I saw her car back out of the driveway. She didn't look up. She had no idea how close the truth was breathing down her neck. I whispered to myself, this doesn't end in shouting. It ends in facts. No anger, no show. Just a straight line through the lies. I started building a timeline, her story next to mine, truth in the margins. Her games didn't scare me anymore. They insulted my intelligence. A few blocks away, my parents still believed what they were told. That stung more than I wanted to admit. So I drove over. My mother answered the door, warm smile, eyes tired. Got a minute? I asked, holding an envelope. We sat in her kitchen. I pulled out receipts, one for the necklace I bought last December, another for the plane ticket I paid for last June. I showed her the gift posts online. From Clyde, she'd captioned them. Her hand went to her mouth. He gave me this on Christmas. No, Mom, I did. She said nothing. I let the silence sit between us. Her discomfort told me everything. Maybe she'd known, maybe not. But the pain on her face wasn't surprise, it was guilt. My dad's legacy, her pride in Clyde, the illusion she'd held on to, unraveling in real time. Do you not see the pattern? I asked. She didn't answer, just looked away. Later that night, I invited a few of our mutual friends to the backyard, a low-key get-together, nothing fancy. I set out water bottles and snacks like it was just another evening. But when she arrived, I clicked the remote and the screen on the patio TV lit up. Archived posts, her voice memo, side-by-side screenshots of private chats versus public statements. Then I asked, calm as ever, was I ever really your boyfriend, or just the placeholder until someone better came along? She blinked, opened her mouth. Nothing came out. A friend whispered, what the hell is this? Someone else stood. Wait, she told us you were stalking her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. The room, the backyard, wasn't on her side anymore. For once, her carefully scripted chaos didn't land. Her mask cracked. She stammered, tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, said I was taking things out of context. No, I replied. You built two stories. I just aligned them. Her face flushed, the control she'd held, slipping fast. She cried, tried to hug me. I didn't know how to ask for help, she whispered. I didn't move. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out the watch, the one I'd found hidden weeks ago, the back still etched. Silence doesn't mean weakness. She gasped. I stepped back. That line, it's not yours anymore. I could see the tears were real, but so were the choices she'd made, the pain she'd caused. I wouldn't carry it for her. I won't let your lies rewrite my story, I said, voice low, steady. She looked down, broken for the first time, but it wasn't over. As the group began to disperse, she leaned in, almost inaudibly. "You don't see the whole picture yet." Before I could reply, she tapped her phone's lock screen and walked into the night. No message sent, but the threat hung there, thick as smoke. I went back inside, sat at my desk, opened my journal, and typed, "I'm ready for what comes next." The morning was quiet, no beeping phone, no mental alarms, just me, sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the light crawl across the railing. A mockingbird chirped nearby, unconcerned with anything but its song. I opened my journal and wrote without flinching. There's strength in letting go, too. It had been a month. No texts, no drama, no new lies to chase, just space, clean air. My days had been uneventful, but that wasn't a bad thing. After everything, silence didn't feel like avoidance anymore. It felt like healing. For the first time in years, I didn't need to defend myself to anyone. Sometimes peace doesn't come from winning, but from walking away. And I had walked far. It started small. I cleared out the garage, then I cleared out my inbox. Then I started something new. A community garden with the empty lot 3 blocks down. Nothing ambitious, just soil and seeds. Some of the neighborhood kids helped, curious at first, then excited. We dug trenches, planted tomatoes and herbs. Mrs. Jenkins brought over compost from her backyard. Even old Ed from across the street dropped by, muttering something about finally someone using that damn lot. There was joy in the dirt, in water spilled, in watching something grow under your hands. That garden became my mirror. From broken ground to green life. Not perfect, but thriving. At the community center one afternoon, a volunteer I barely knew looked up from sorting canned goods and said, "You seem lighter these days." I hadn't realized I was. Later that week, I met with my mother again. Just the two of us, sitting on a park bench. The same park where she used to bring me after school when I was 7, bribing me with ice cream if I promised not to fight with Clyde that day. We didn't talk much at first. Then I said, "You don't owe me agreement, just acknowledgement." She looked away, then nodded. It wasn't closure, but it was enough. I called Clyde once. No answer. I left a message. "I'm not reaching out to fix anything," I said, voice even. "Just letting you know I see it all now. I see you. I'm good, either way." There was no reply. Didn't need one. One evening, I sat down with a pen and wrote her a letter. The kind of letter you don't send, just write so you can stop carrying it around. I thanked her for what she taught me. I told her what she broke. I said I was proud of who I'd become in the wreckage. "You were a storm," I wrote, "but I was never the shore you could erode." The letter ended with, "Goodbye is not a word, it's a decision." I folded it neatly and slipped it into a box of old photographs, memories that no longer asked for attention. Then I sat down to write in my journal again. "You've seen me fall apart," I wrote to whoever might read it someday. "Now watch me stand." I thought about a quote Maya Angelou once said. I'd underlined it years ago. "I can be changed by what happens to me." But I refused to be reduced by it. I'd gotten a job offer, nothing flashy but solid. A new apartment lined up, smaller than before, but it felt mine. Life wasn't perfect. It didn't have to be. It was mine again. I closed my journal with a final line. Benjamin, still standing. And maybe, just maybe, the next chapter won't be written in pain.